Hello, and welcome to this lesson on writing the equation of a line. And that's going to be our goal. We want to write the equation of a line, specifically in slope-intercept form. That's the form we've been talking about. That's that y equals mx plus b thing we looked at in the previous lesson. The essential question says, how do I write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form? And we did a teensy bit of that in the previous lesson. We're going to do a whole lot more of it now, and it's going to be a little bit more complex. Did you know to use a service like Uber to catch a ride from one place in the Harrisburg area to another would cost you about $2.50 just to get in the car? It's kind of like a booking fee. And then they charge a rate of about $1.30 per mile. Now, these are small estimations from their real cost because they charge you like per mile and per minute, and there's a booking fee and a lookup fee. So I kind of simplified the process a little bit. But this is actually very close to what the cost actually is. That would be this equation I have here. So y equals 1.3x plus 250, where y is your total cost and x is the number of miles you've driven. So to extend that idea, if you wanted to take an Uber from, say, Palmyra Middle School to the Harrisburg Capitol Building, it's 17.9 miles according to Google Maps. So if you use our equation, you plugged in 17.9 miles in for the miles variable, that would give you a total cost of $25.77. When I looked up the cost on Uber, again, because of those slight differences, it was actually like $29 or something like that. And I'm sure those costs change all the time. But so right now, as I looked it up, 9:30 at night on a Wednesday, it would have cost about $25, ballpark. Okay, so we have one vocabulary word here, which is not a new word. It is the word slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is this y equals mx plus b thing. That formula is very important. It is provided for you, given to you. You do not need to remember it, but you do need to know it, or at least be able to look it up. And things you need to know. You need to know that the m is the slope of that line, and the b value is the y-intercept. So it's called slope-intercept form, because the first missing piece, the m, is the slope, and the second one is the y-intercept. So we're going to start our journey on writing the equation of the line given various pieces of information. We're going to start off, we actually kind of started off in the previous lesson, and it was very easy. So let me take a quick little snapshot back. In the previous lesson, we had problems like this, where I gave you the slope and I gave you the y-intercept, -2, whatever. And I said, oh, write the equation of the line. And we said, oh, okay, that's y equals 3x minus 2. That is the most basic thing we could do with writing the equation of a line. If I give you the slope and I give you the intercept and you're just plugging those values in, okay? We are now going a step past that, but that's our ultimate goal. We still want to get here. So let's see how this works. So given this bit of information, we want to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. And actually, I can write him down here as well. Because typically, after you write down a formula, the very next thing you do whenever you write down a formula is to plug in what you know, the given values for the variables. Things like, I know my m is 3. So I'm going to plug in a 3 there. And if that's the only thing I knew, this problem would be impossible to do because I don't know what this b is. I don't know the y-intercept. Now, there's a couple strategies we could use. One strategy is we could literally just take a piece of graph paper. I'm going to sketch. I'm not going to get graph paper for now. I could take a piece of graph paper. I could plot the point -2, -8, somewhere down there. I could then graph the slope like we did in the previous lesson and maybe even the lesson before that. And I move the way the slope tells me to move, and it would be a slope something like that. And then I can find my y-intercept. That works. All you'd have to do is ask for graph paper. But there's... I'm going to say it's an easier way. It's not really easier. It's a different way. Graphing a lot of times can be more complex. It can be a harder process. It requires graph paper, which we don't always have with us, but we always have our brain. And if you have a plain piece of paper, I'm going to show you how we can do this problem. So check this out. In order to find this b, we actually have a little bit more given information that we're not using. We know that the x value and the y value from this point, the x value is -2, and the y value is a -8. And I can plug those values in. I can plug in the x value for the x and the y value in for the y, and check out what this will look like. So now what I have is I have an equation with only one variable, which means we can solve this equation. I can find b. I can find my y-intercept. And it's really not that bad. So all I've done so far is I plugged in m for m, x for x, y for y, and look what's left. I can solve for b. I'm going to simplify here. -6, that's 3 times by -2. I'm going to solve for b. I'm going to add 6 to cancel out this -6. Whoa, that's a +6. And I have b equals -2. So what do I know? Well, I now have all the pieces I need to write the equation of the line. Because the formula is y equals mx+ b. I know my slope is 3. This is the second time I'm plugging him in. And I now know my y-intercept is -2. That is the equation of this line. So my goal was to write the equation of the line. The big issue was I did not know the y-intercept. So by plugging in the x value for x and the y value for y, I was able, and slope for slope, I was able to find the y-intercept and then plug it in, and I'm done. Okay, letter B, same deal. I'm going to write the equation of the line. Y equals mx+ b. I'm going to plug my x value in for x, my y value in for y, and my slope in for slope, and check what we got. Y is 1. Slope is -4. That was my m value. X is 1. B is b. I don't know what b is. That's the whole point of the problem. That's the main issue of this problem. Now, if I do the math here, I solve for b. Add 4 on both sides. b equals 5. Which means I can now write the equation of this line. I know y equals mx+ b. I know my slope is a -4. I know my y-intercept is +5. I'm going to move him down just a little bit. So I have the equation y equals -4x + 5. And that's the equation of my line. That is much, much quicker than getting out a piece of graph paper, plotting our point, moving the way slope tells us to move, finding our y-intercept, then writing the equation. Okay? But that graphing method is a good, valid method. It's just more work for us that we don't really want to have to do. Okay, 2 for me, 1 for you. Go ahead and pause the video and try this problem on your own. When you are ready to continue, hit play and we will go through it together. Okay, so let's see here. hopefully you started pretty much the way we started the previous two problems. Slope-intercept form. You plugged in your slope for slope. You plugged in your x value for x. You plugged in the y value for y. And the only thing we could not plug in for was the b. So then we simplified and solved this equation. Simplify would be multiplying the 4 times by the -3, which is -12. Solve would then be adding 12 to both sides and getting a b value of 13. That is our y-intercept. Finally, writing the equation of our line. I'm going to write this down again, although I'll be honest, you probably don't need to write down the formula a second time. We already have it right here. We could just use it, but whatever, we're good. So y equals 4x plus 13 is our final answer. Now, I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove to you that this is the right answer. So y equals 4x plus 13. Have that in your mind. Y equals 4x plus 13. Now, here is this. We said that it is going to go through the point -3, 1, and it has that slope. So we're looking for the point -3, 1 and a slope of 4. Point -3, 1. Oopsie, can't use the mouse, gotta use the iPad. I can't get it exact, but it is right. There it is. I saw it. That is the point -3, 1. Okay, there. Proof. And this line has a slope of 4. So from one point to the next, from one point to the next, I'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. So that is, it meets all the requirements of the original problem. It has the right point. It has the right slope. So that proves that that is the right equation. All right. Hopefully that's not too bad and you're understanding the process behind it. We plugged in slope for slope, x for x, y for y, so that we can find our y-intercept. And then we write the equation of the line. So how could this be made harder? Well, what if I don't even give you the slope? Check out that problem. You don't even know what the slope is. But we know how to find the slope. We've done that. That was the very first lesson of this new unit. So we just really have an extra, well, step or so of finding slope. So slope formula, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's how we find slope. I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. That is the x and the y value of the first point. That is the x and the y value of the second point. I then plug in my values. 1 minus 4 over 2 minus 6 gives us a slope, a slope of -3 over -4. 1 minus 4 is -3. 2 minus 6 is -4. And that does simplify to +3/4. That is the only extra step in this whole process. Now, the rest of the problem is very much like the previous 3 problems we've just done. So I'm going to write down my formula. I'm going to change color. You know what? I'm tired of red. Let's go with that purple. Y equals mx plus b. I'm going to plug my slope in. 3/4. I'm going to plug in x for x and y for y, and whoa. We have an x and a y here. We have an x and a y here. What point do we use? Well, the good news is it doesn't matter. You pick the point that you think is going to be the easiest. Me, I'm picking the second point. Both numbers are positive, and the numbers are small. They're close to 0. I like that. I could plug this in and we would get the exact same answer. But why have bigger numbers when you could have smaller numbers? So I'm going to plug in my x value for x. That's him. I'm going to plug in the y value for y. And now, if I solve this new equation and I find b, that's my y-intercept, and I can finally finish this problem. So let's see. 3/4 times 2 is 1.5, 1.5. I'm going to subtract 1.5 on both sides. And I get b equals negative 0.5. That is my y-intercept. And so when I plug in my slope for slope and my intercept for intercept, I get the equation of the line. This is the equation of the line that would go through these 2 points. And I can prove it by hopping into Desmos. 3/4 x minus 0.5. Y equals 3/4 x minus 0. That's close enough. 0.5. All right, and we said it was going to go through the points 6, 4, and 2, 1. Let's see. 1, 2, 1. Check. It goes to the point 2, 1. And 6, 4. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is. And if I can get it right on somewhere. Boom, it was there for a second. You saw it. There it is. So my line does indeed go through exactly those 2 points. I found the slope of the line. I then found the y-intercept of the line using this method that we were just using. Okay, so really the only new step here is finding slope. Letter B. I'm going to start by finding the slope. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is our slope formula. I'm going to label my points x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to plug those values in. y2 minus y1, that is minus a negative 2, over x2 minus x1. And if I'm going too fast, you have no clue what I'm doing, you might want to go back and watch the video on finding the slope of a line. We did a whole bunch of them. Then we do the math across the top and a math across the bottom, and I'm going to get 9/3, which simplifies to 3. That is the slope of the line that goes through these 2 points. So I've found the slope. Now we must find the y-intercept. So y equals mx plus b. I know my slope is 3. And I can plug in an x and a y from one of my points up above. Now, an interesting thought that I've had students ask before is, can you plug in like this x here and this y over here? And the answer is no, you can't. You have to use one point. So one set of x's and y's. These two are kind of very much linked together by the equation. So you have to use either the 2 and the negative 2 or the 5 and the 7. And you know what? I'm going to choose the 5 and the 7 because they're both positive. Why not? Why deal with a negative number if I can deal with positive numbers? I don't care the number is going to be a little bit bigger. I would rather do this math with positive in my head. So 3 times 5 is 15. If I subtract 15 on both sides, I'm going to get, it looks like a -8. Double check for me. I'm pretty sure I'm right. 7 minus 15 is okay. Good. And now, using this formula, y equals 3x minus 8. That is the y-intercept that we found here and the slope that we found there. So, slope-intercept form. All right. 2 for me, 1 for you. Let's go ahead and pause the video and try this on your own. When you are ready to continue, hit play, and we will go through it together. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is your slope formula. x1, y1, x2, y2 are your points. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 gives you 4 over negative 2, which simplifies down to just plain old negative 2, technically over 1, although we don't need to write it. So we have our slope. And I write down my slope-intercept form. And I plug in what I know. I know my slope is negative 2. I'm going to use the first point there, 0, 0, because heck, why not? That's going to be so easy. 0 equals 0 plus b. I could stop here and say b is 0. I mean, it's a little weird to do this, subtracting 0 on both sides, but if it makes it feel good, sure, I guess. It's still 0. Which means the equation of my line is going to be y equals negative 2x, technically plus 0, although we would not write that plus 0. But I'm letting you know that is the y-intercept. That's what happened to him. I didn't just make him vanish. He's there, but we wouldn't really write it in our final answer because it is just 0. So y equals negative 2x would be our final. Did you know you did not actually have to do all of this at all if you recognized that this point 0, 0 was your y-intercept? The y-intercept happens when the x value is 0. My x value is 0, which means the y-intercept was 0. Right here at the origin is where the line is going to cross the y-axis, so we could have skipped all of this work if you recognized that that was the y-intercept. And if you didn't, no biggie. That comes with practice. So, if you could please, let's see. Well, what pieces of information do you need to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form? Think about it. In the past 2 problems, what pieces did we need? If you said you needed a slope and a y-intercept, you're absolutely correct. And those are the 2 things you need. That's it. Example 3. We're flying. But please, if you're having trouble with these problems, slow down. Pause the video. Rewatch a question or an example if you need to. Definitely try some on your own. Okay? But at this point, it's a lot of the same skill over and over and over again, which is why we can go a little bit faster. And we've been doing slope for a while now, and we've been we know what slope-intercept form looks like. We've been doing that for a little bit now. Okay. So example 3 here says we are going to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form, but this time we're looking at a graph. We actually did do this, I think, in the previous lesson once or twice, where looking at the picture, I can find my slope. Boom, boom, boom. Those are the only 3 points that go right through those lattice points, those kind of crisscrosses. It doesn't cross here or here. It's in the middle. It doesn't cross here or here. It's in the middle. But it crosses 1, 2, 3 places. So from one point to the next, my rise over run, my pattern, my slope is up 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4 over 5. Up 2 over 5. My slope of this line is 2 over 5. Positive because my line is going up. My y-intercept of this line is where does the line cross the y-axis? And it's crossing at, here's the origin, 0. It's crossing at positive 1. Which means the equation of this line is now simply just y equals 2/5 x plus 1. And we're done. That's it. Letter B. I have a line crisscrossing here and here and here. Those are the 3 points that I'm going to use to find my slope and my y-intercept and everything. And the pattern seems to be down 4/1. That's my rise over run. That's the slope. Down 4/1. Down 4/1. Slope, or I can make this simpler. Slope is -4/1. Don't really need to write the over 1. It's ghost over 1, but understand it's there. My y-intercept is this point right here. It's where my line is crossing the y-axis. It's the y-intercept. And that happens at, here's 0, -1, -2, -3, at -4. Which means the equation of this line is y equals -4x minus 4. This one is the slope, this one is the y-intercept, just to make sure we're clear, because it's the same number for both. So from the graph, a lot of times we can find the slope and the y-intercept. They give them to you, not always, and I think we're going to see some of those trickier ones later on. But for now, we're trying to make it easy. We're trying to get you to be familiar with what's going on here. So 2 for me and 1 for you. Go ahead and pause the video. Try this one on your own. When you are ready to continue, hit play, and then let's do it together. All right, so let's see. You may have found, hopefully, each of these points. The slope, the rise over run, is up 1/2, 1/2, 1/2. So I'm using a slope of 1/2. My y-intercept, my b value, is going to be right here, this point. That's where my line crosses the y-axis. 0, +1, 2, 3, +4. So that makes the equation of my line y equals 1/2 x plus 4. All right. So the last thing we have here is a few word problems. And our goal in these word problems is just to write the equation of the line. To write the equation that models the situation. Now, each of these is going to be a linear equation in slope-intercept form. So we're going to have that same kind of y equals mx+b look. Okay, this is the start of this process with word problems. We haven't really seen one yet in almost all of the examples so far in this unit. We're going to see a few. The next lesson, or the next unit, unit 5, is all about functions, and it is going to be pretty much all word problems. Okay, so it says here you have $100 in iTunes. Each song you buy costs $2.50. Write an equation in slope-intercept form that represents this situation. Well, a little preview here, we can say that this $100 is our initial value. That's what we're going to call it later on. This is our y-intercept. It's how much money we started with at the beginning of the problem. At the beginning of the problem, you started with $100. Now, each song you buy costs $2.50. So what's going to happen to your $100? Is it going to go up by $2.50 every song? Or is it going to go down by $2.50 every song you buy? And you should be saying it's going to go down by $2.50. So I made my slope negative. Down by $2.50 for each song you buy, starting from 100. Now you could have written this another way. You could have just said, you know, if I have $100 and then I'm going to buy a song, so my money's going to go down by $2.50 each song I buy. I'm going to put M for music. S looks like a 5 sometimes. And then that would give me my amount of money I have. I shouldn't have used M for music. Dollars. I don't know. Whatever. Well, believe it or not, this equation and that equation are the same thing. They're just kind of written in a slightly different way. They're both kind of slope-intercept form. Letter B here says, James is selling paracord bracelets. He purchased $75 worth of paracord. Okay, so he starts with $75 worth of paracord. He sells each, and the calculator's kind of blocking a little bit here. He sells each bracelet for $5. Write an equation in slope-intercept form that represents the amount of money James makes, Y, after selling X bracelets. Okay, so he makes $5 per bracelet. I know that. So $5 times by each bracelet. That's how much money he's making. Where does this $75 come into play? Would it be a plus 75? Minus 75? Is it not needed? What do you think? Well, it's going to be a minus 75. And go, why is it minus 75? Well, he bought $75 worth of paracord. So if he sells no bracelets, he's now in the hole for $75. He has not made any money. He's negative $75 because he bought all this paracord and hasn't sold anything yet. But as he starts selling these bracelets, as he sells 5, 10, 15 bracelets, he's making his money back. I think at 15 bracelets, he'd be back to even at 75. If he sells more than 15 bracelets, now he's actually making money from this. Okay. 2 for me, 1 for you. Derek has $200. He got a job working at Hershey Park and makes $7.25 an hour. Write an equation in slope-intercept form showing how much money Derek has after working for X hours. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video, think about it, and then when you're ready to continue, hit play. We'll go through it together. Okay, the final answer should be y equals 7.25x plus 200. So this is how much money he has. He has $200 at the beginning of the problem. There it is. And then each hour, x is our hours variable for x hours. For each hour, he's making another $7.25. So we take 725 times by the number of hours. That's how much money he earned. And we're going to add that to the $200 he already has. If you're finding this challenging, it's okay for now. Obviously, practice makes perfect, and the more problems we do, the better we're going to get. And we're going to get more practice of this. We're going to get a lot of practice of this in the next unit. Okay? So for now, don't stress too much about it. This is a major theme of the next unit. But I wanted you to get a little bit of practice in now that we're talking about slope-intercept form and understanding slope-intercept form. And a lot of these can be just kind of reasoned out. There's only 2 numbers in the problem. We know it has to fit into this formula. Okay? Summary. When writing the equation of a line, why is it important to find the slope first? We didn't really talk about this, but why do you think? Why do you think you have to find the slope first? Pause the video, put down a thought, and then we'll go through it together. Well, the reason why you have to find the slope first is because if you don't find the slope, you really can't do much else. Here, well, the slope was given to us. So let's get past these here. This problem, these problems. If I did not find the slope here, Well, what would I be able to plug in? I'd be able to plug in my x and y for x and y, but since I don't know the y-intercept and I don't know the slope, I would be stuck and I would have nothing else I could do in the problem. But if you find the slope first, like we did, then when you plug in the x and the y and the slope, now there's only one missing piece of the equation, and we can solve that equation, and we do. And that's how we found our y-intercept. I will tell you that pretty much to write the equation of the line in any form, it's almost always required to find the slope first. It is the, I was going to say it's the most important piece of the equation. I feel confident saying that. It is probably the most important piece of the equation. You must have slope in order to find your y-intercept. So yeah, you need to have your slope first. Okay. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Toodles.